Dr. Patrick Porter here. We're here at the Dave Asprey event, the biohacking conference. We always find some really amazing tech. Now, this tech that we're going to be talking about today, the NanoVi, I've been on it many times. I love it. I've done it before, but we were at a conference together where I actually got to take 5 days off and actually go to Sedona of all places. And while I was doing my IV therapy, they were giving me the treatment, and it made a lot of difference. I love it, and for clarity of my mind and thoughts. But we have Rowena here who's going to tell us a little bit more about how that technology works. Tell us about what inspired you to create it. We're going to have some pictures. We'll have some links to all the technology in the show notes. But tell us a little bit about the technology, why it was created, what it's doing, mechanism of action, whatever you feel comfortable sharing with everyone.
Oh, sure. Sure. First of all, the creator of it is Hans Eng, whom you know. And he's a German engineer. And he recognized that we could mimic one of the processes in the body and do it outside the body and augment what was happening in the cells. And that process is related to the cellular water, and it's the amount of order or how closely packed together the water molecules are. And they have to be ordered in the cell for proteins to fold, and proteins have to fold to work, and proteins do all the work in the body.
Right.
And so they rely on the water to fold. And what our device does is it augments the water in the cells using the same wavelengths that the body uses, and then actually some additional ones that are also powerful. But basically, we mimic the body, created it inside the NanoVi device, and then deliver it through this humid airflow through the mucous membrane into the
So you're
water.
wearing a Kepler, just like you looks like kind of oxygen, but
Yeah.
We'll have a picture. I have some pictures of me using it.
Okay, and it's really cool because in Sedona, all of us are going from sea level, most of us, and we are all low in blood oxygen saturation. So we go from 99, 100% down to about 95% because of the elevation. And in one session, it goes back up because the body is using the oxygen better. So even though it looks like oxygen, we're not adding oxygen, but we're adding utilization, which has the same effect where the blood turns red and from brown to red, and you can measure it on an oximeter. So that was cool because the nurse there could see it in almost everybody because most people are coming from the coast.
Yeah. And of course, I live in sea level, but I usually live in an airplane. But
his blood is so messed up.
Yes. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about how clinics are using it, because although people can buy it for themselves, right? You don't have to be a clinician, or do you have to be a clinician to buy it?
No, we're right about half and half, maybe a bit more on even personal users now, because people are investing in their own health and well-being more and more, as you know. And actually, that's true of BrainTap too. You used to see it in a clinic, and now people are really wanting their own at home.
Right.
And so we do both of them, and it can buy them. But in clinics, which you asked about, they will often combine it with something else, like BrainTap is ideal.
Yep.
Or maybe red lights or PEMF. A lot of people, like myself included, I use BrainTap and NanoVi together. And then I'll also use it while I'm meditating, for example, which is different than BrainTap. Although sometimes I use BrainTap during meditation if I'm trying to get alpha or something in the meditation, but just binaural beats or something that's not Patrick's voice talking to me.
Yeah, so this is a nice therapy to stack those health stacks where you can do it at the same time. If they're sitting there or laying there, they could be doing electrostim, they could be doing infrared sauna, they could be doing all these different things, because if you have oxygen available, it means that you're going to have better healing in that space.
Right. And what happens is, with some of the therapies like, say, cryo or PEMF, they're really kicking up the cellular activities. They're kicking things into action, and NanoVi makes them work better. So once they're working better, you've got a double win. 1 and 1 equals 3, because you've already initiated all this activity, then you make it work better, and it's really effective that way.
I think what I noticed as well when I was doing, because we were doing the NAD, right? And so a lot of people were having stomach aches and things like that because it would take them 3 to 4 hours. For me, I think it made a big difference. I didn't have any discomfort, but I put my brain tap on and I was like out because
Yeah.
I'd go really deep.
Yeah.
And I felt like it energized me too, even more than I did before. So, if you're a clinician, when people have this in their office, now we just talked about if you're a personal user, then where would they find it before we get into the clinical questions? So,
So that's at Eng3 we have a website that's eng3.com is fine. ENG3 and the number 3 .com there's lots of information there. There's a video on how it works and things, and that does a better job than I do.
Yeah, and we'll have those in the show notes, so you can just click on them and find it.
Yeah, and then if you're going to a center and doing NAD plus that doesn't have NanoVi, they need to get one because it really makes a difference.
Oh yeah, I mean,
for everybody.
I heard that from everyone, and we all became very close during that week because we're all in the same room. They got 3 or 4 IVs going and
feeling crummy.
Yeah, and it was pretty unique. We were actually able to show the pre and post with our neurocheck. So if you have a neurocheck, you can actually show that to your patient too, how the cellular energy increases, because we can measure that energy across the ATP production, if you will, across the cells. So within a clinic, do you have any information about like when doctors charge for it? What do they typically, or a clinic charges for it? What do they typically?
They'll typically be $50, $60. Some are up at $120, depending on the market, right? The cities, because where you live is much less expensive than New
California,
York or something. And but then what they do is they'll discount it for buying a series of sessions, because you really want people to use it more often, or so they'll sell a series of sessions for less money, but then people come back and use it regularly, which is ideal if they're going to a center. And then the other one is they use it in conjunction with, say, cryo or hyperbarics or any of these, certainly brain training. And that's another part of it. But the neurofeedback, use it at the same time as you're challenging the brain. And then you're just going to get a better result, even if you only use it that one time. It's well worth using. And almost all of our clinical studies are before and after one use. So you don't have to use it for a long time to know that it's working. You may or may not notice it after one use, but it's definitely shown to be
right. Those of you that are chiropractors or Brain Tap Nation, you talk, the nervous system resets every 72 hours. So obviously, if you go to the gym once, you're not going to build muscle that's going to last a lifetime, but you will challenge it. That's why I believe everyone who uses this, you should have it in your clinic, especially if you're a clinician. You can use this yourself. You go on break, this is something that you will be using, right? I mean, because you'll feel the difference. It's easy to use. Some people I've talked to when we were there, that you could do this while you're doing your email, even as a doctor, just so that you can start working on yourself. So many caregivers, this is one of the therapies that you can have in your clinic that you can have and help you to show up as your best self if you do it during your break.
Right. And we've had a lot of devices that were sold because the clinician wanted it, and they were using it. Their athletes, especially faster recovery for athletes, is a big deal. And people get a little older and they're a little slower and they don't like that, and so on. And so we get a lot of clinicians who recognize they want it, and then they use it in their practice, which is a win-win for them.
Right. When a clinician buys this and they start using it in their practice, what kind of training can they expect what do you usually have to tell people about it, or you just have them use it?
Well, it's very easy. It's very user-friendly. So to actually set up, it's a couple buttons like you'd see on a VCR. So that part's very easy. And then we have a 20-minute training video for clinicians and staff, because there's staff turnover, excuse me. Right. And so instead of having to try to re-educate every person, it's a 20-minute video. It goes through, what it is, what we've found the most helpful way is to present it, what the clinical evidence is. So it sort of arms them with the information they need to represent it in a clinic.
Right.
So that's sort of the basics for the the clinic is probably more helpful in all the things they can read.
Right. I know that, so there's these kind of medical applications we're talking about, but here we're at the biohacking conference, and these are people using it pretty much for themselves and just seeing what were they telling you here when they come up and they say, hey, we love this technology, it's doing X. What are they seeing?
It's mostly like Dave Asprey always talks about it as a mitochondrial upgrade. And it is, but that's different than a lot of people's description of it.
Right.
And the biggest one they say is more energy and clarity. Like people will really feel this shift in their head and this clarity and focus, because these conferences are so scattering. They're challenging environments and so on. And so that's really common, because this is a healthy crowd. By and large, this is a very healthy crowd. So you can't expect the same kind of shift as you would see in a really elderly person or a really ill person, or somebody that's way off balance. Then it's much easier to see the changes.
We tell people this event, when we do our neurocheck technology, they're the healthiest to begin with. And at first we thought, oh no, these guys, because we're used to seeing scores, they're using only 30% of the capacity of their nervous system, that when they're coming in for therapy. And so we have to do something to raise their mitochondria. These are people that want to have that next level.
Yeah.
Like they might be operating at 5 or 6% of 10 or whatever, 50 to 60%. They want to take it up to 100. And we see some people that are 100% here, but they still want to maximize that, because everyone knows that, you might have a plan, but what are you going to do when you get hit? How are you going to handle that stress? Because there's a lot of stressors out there. So this can help with all the environmental stress too, because those are what's shutting down the cells. So if I was to walk up to your booth today and never knowing anything about it, how would you explain the technology to me?
Okay, I would say that the NanoVi device is running a humid airflow through excitation units, where the units bombard the humid airflow with specific wavelengths that adjust the droplets of water in a way that it can be transferred through the body when you inhale it. So it touches the mucous membrane, gets transferred throughout the body, and it's changing the nature of the water in the cells enough that it makes a difference for protein folding, quite possibly also mitochondrial function, but we don't have the evidence of that. But the water, all of these cellular components are immersed in water. And so that's the environment for the proteins. And so we're just improving the environment a bit so that the proteins can do their work. The body knows what to do. It knows how to heal. It can do amazing things. Everything that's really remarkable is just done by the body. We just create a little support underneath it.
Right. So as we talk about this and people are going to go there and research it, where should they go and how should they follow is there any plans for anything upgrade, or is this is all we need really? There's no real need for an upgrade.
This is really it. The easiest thing to do is to go and there's forms on the website. And if you sign in, we only send study results, pricing, important information. We don't just send out marketing stuff, and it usually goes out every month or two. Like we're not the kind of hype, but those study results we don't have published for reason. We need people to inquire before we can feed it out to them, and that's a great place to learn more about it. As you see those different kinds of research that were done on proteins and on humans. That are placebo controlled. The protein studies are sham controlled. And so it gives a better picture of how this has been reviewed and assessed.
Awesome. So they can go to your website, and we already announced that. So we're going to put that in the show notes. They can learn more about it. Is there any place that they can find out like where you're going to be, where they can try it out? If they want to try it out, or do they?
We're just going to follow Patrick around. If he's at the show, we want to be there.
Yeah, there you go.
We don't actually do all that many shows, but we need to publish that on our page. We don't currently. And there are also centers available to people to go try it or use it in different places. There's quite a lot of a growing number of wellness centers. It used to be we dealt mostly with chronic illness,
Mhm.
and we dealt mostly with physicians,
Mhm.
and they didn't necessarily let somebody come in from the public.
Right.
But once it's in a wellness center, a biohacking center, a spa type, any of those,
Mm.
they're happy to have people come and do sessions. And so there's more and more of those available.
Yeah.
And so that we can also, that information is also available to people of
Right.
where they could go to try it.
So this is a unique therapy that you don't see everywhere. So if you are a clinician out there, this could be a unique differentiator from other people in your
Right.
market. You know, I think as it catches on, as you go places like, once it's in this kind of market, because the biohacking field, for those watching this that don't understand it, these are people that they only talk about things they've actually validated for themselves, and then they validate it through their community. And then if Dave says, yeah, he agrees, right? And everything here has been curated, checked,
Yes.
and pretty much double checked, because he doesn't want something here that's going to reflect back on his brand, which he spent 10, 15 years here
Yeah.
building this powerful brand. So I know if something's here, you know, it's
Yeah.
been validated.
Yeah.
So, you know, I encourage the doctors watching this to reach out, read, research. And of course, we'll have them anywhere, not everywhere BrainTap is, of course, because sometimes you can't bring it. But when we do our national conventions, we're definitely going to invite them to be there, because we believe this is a great product for BrainTap. It's a great way to upgrade your experience on BrainTap.
Yes.
So, if you have other therapies where they're just sitting there, like I said, this is a way you can give them another therapy that can help them to modulate, you know, oxygen levels in the body. And most people have, you know, if you use a pulse oximeter, that's one way you can measure it, you know, and they don't have, most people are suffering there, especially when they're talking about long COVID, or if they have some of these kind of illnesses. So, you know, you can do your own studies. You know, if you have technology, I know a lot of our doctors have our NeuroCheck. I would encourage you to get it, run your own studies, because then you're going to see for yourself how well it works. We did it. I actually left it behind at Katrina's, and so that she could do a little more studies with us and show, because I think that we need to validate things, but once things are validated, we just need to get it out there to the world and start sharing it. So where do you see yourself in the company 5 years from now?
Oh, we're going to own the world.
There you go.
Well, one thing we didn't talk about is that I didn't hit on, I mentioned chronic diseases and so on, but this device really reduces oxidative stress damage.
Yeah, there you go.
And that's why it's so complementary with what you're doing, because when you concentrate really hard, it's like running a marathon in the oxidative damage you're doing. You're just doing it in your brain instead of your body.
Right.
And so if you repair that damage quickly, it's noticeable to in the brain. And that's such an important thing. So one of the things I see moving forward is a huge interest in brain health, a huge transfer. It used to be, I mean, it's not just physical fitness and all of that. People really are paying attention to their brains. So that's a big shift that I see going forward. And the other one we have is high performance. And we call it optimization, and I'm not entirely sure I like the word optimize, because it's at such a high standard to be optimal. But if we're just a lot better, that's really good.
Yeah.
And so I see it being much more in performance, professional sports, professional athletes. That's very much emerging, and people really trying to up level and perform at a higher level. And that's the wellness side of it, rather than the recovery of damage once it's already done. And so I see those as our bigger emerging areas. And it's kind of an easy prediction because it's already started.
Yes, right. And it's, I mean, people do physiologically feel it. So it's not like some technologies where you don't know what happened. I mean, some people are disassociated from their body so much it doesn't matter what you do. You could hit them with a hammer and they wouldn't know it. But I could feel it. And yeah, you know, I thought it was wonderful. One time I was there, I couldn't find they didn't have it on, so I had to stop. I said, no, I want the NanoVi while I'm doing it, because I might as well do the therapy. You're just sitting there getting the IV. Right. So especially if you're an IV doctor, and I know there's a lot of them out there that are listening to me, because we use the brain tap with them. But this is something else you can stack on to get those nutrients to mobilize and be used by the body in a much more efficient way.
And plus, people don't feel sick.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can reduce the nausea and so on, then people can go through the experience more gracefully.
Right.
And probably faster. You probably were.
I never took more than 45 minutes.
I was in there too because it was the brain tap. I used the brain tap and NanoVi every time.
Yep.
And that's a great combination. Still, I didn't find it very comfortable.
Right.
But
you're a little uncomfortable until, with me, I just zone out. I don't even, because I went through pain of surgery though before, so I can totally disassociate from my body. Yeah. Yeah. So
this is when you want to be disassociated
yes.
from your body.
Right. And so, the one thing is that, there's so many of these kind of technologies that help the body. This is one that I personally used. I personally recommend it. So if you have any questions about it, you're in the Brain Tap Network, please give me a call and I'll tell you what my experiences is. We'll put you in touch with Rowena and the team and get you set up for what we can do. And if you need a demo, we can figure out where they're going to be at if you're going to be at that show, because you go to a lot of shows.
Yeah, or find someone near you if that's helpful. So we're here to help. We've got our contact information on the website for phone numbers and all of that. Happy to speak with people, especially there's often really more specific questions, and none of that's going to be at the general website. So more than happy, and almost any chronic disease we've got experience with. Of course, we're not publishing any of that.
Right.
So just let us know if there's information people are looking for.
All right. Thanks. I'm glad we got this interview in. Glad to see you here at the Biohacking. Look forward to the next time we see each other. And please reach out, start using it, because it's one of the ways you can better your brain function. We're on a mission to better 1 billion brains. This is one way to tweak that process and get those trillions really going in the brain and get it healing in a way that's going to mobilize and help you to think, sleep, and perform better. So till next time, keep bettering your brain and keep sharing this message with the world. Thank you.